This is on your CIM, Corporate Digital Communications, December 2019, task 1.c. The task is about the corporate brand identity and the employee engagement. In simple terms, a corporate brand identity will have symbols, communications, and behaviors from one author's point of view. And do employees engage with these dimensions? In the simple form, do you wear a company's corporate branded t shirt? Are you engaged? Two functions in your personal life. How engaged are you with the brand identity of your company? Now, for the task success, you have to always understand the command word. The command word is critical evaluate, not just explain. So, which means whatever you are talking about, you have to look at not one angle, but at least two to three angles. Not from only Davis's point, but from Frombrun's point and another author's point. And at the same time, to critically evaluate, you have to evaluate certain amount of different types of information and data. And there you have to really appreciate the validity, reliability, and applicability of what you are saying. Applicability to the context, the industry context, the country context, the market, or the comparative context. So there is a style of writing. Remember, command word is critical evaluate. The assignment has three parts. First of all, theoretically, conceptually, you have to evaluate this topic of brand identity and the relationship with corporate reputation. The second side of the assignment is you got to look at some of the best practices of companies trying to change brand identity and its impact on employees. And the third aspect is whether such a change of rebranding will be welcome by your organization or it will be disruptive. So those are the three dimensions. So let's start first. The critical evaluation of the concept and the context of this relationship of a brand identity to reputation has been discussed by multiple authors. Frombrun, Reil, they all have these interconnected frameworks. If you remember, right? The four blocks, the three blocks. So you can put one against the other and critically evaluate what one author says against what the other author says. Where do they agree? Where do they disagree? And of course, you have to conclude the relationship between the brand identity factors and corporate reputation. So this is the first part of your assignment. Try to use diagrams, some interesting statistics. But remember, you have to have one or two angles to what you're talking about, not just very blank and basic definitions. Critical evaluation. So you get that established. The next part is exciting part because you can benchmark corporates in any part of the world and how they've made changes in the brand identity and how has that impacted employees. So this has to be done through analysis of some case studies. Now, first of all, what are those brand identity factors? What were the initiatives taken by the company? How did it impact employee engagement? So you're almost thinking like a table, maybe a large analysis in the annexure, summary in the body, and you will write in a report form to make it interesting. For example, when UPS did its change from its logistics, very professional identity to I love logistics brand identity change, they used a lot of employees in their communications. They used a lot of planned as well as unplanned communications. So how did that change employee engagement? You might want to do some research, maybe on Glassdoor or maybe on some other stats to see did employee satisfaction go up or down, to what extent were employees involved, and come to a conclusion it was a success or a failure. Same way, we just seen the recent rebranding of NDB. Now remember, rebranding also doesn't mean the change of the name of the brand. It could be just the brand message could change. The brand outlook could change. The brand tone or brand personality could be changed. So NDB started recently talking about their 40-year anniversary. So some of us shared in our class discussions how the employees, especially the millennials, started engaging with the brand significantly on social media, wearing the t-shirts, the caps, putting a lot of selfie videos. So that just showed you how the engagement happened. Mind you, this was a bank some time ago which could not attract millennial employees because they were a pretty old traditional bank. So here's an example of how rebranding positively is creating employee engagement. So you can give some good analysis, maybe even put a screenshot or two just to give it a little bit more clarity. Because you got to turn these positive, negative learnings to apply to your company. So that's the second part. Now the third part is about if there is a rebranding happening in your company, is that going to be positively or disruptively impacting your employees to your company? Now for that discussion, you got to look at the conditions that is surrounding your company. Is it conducive for a rebranding? Now for that, you got to look at some analysis using the right theories. So as at now, if the employees have issues with your brand perception of a particular aspect of your brand, then you will find if you do a rebranding exercise effectively, that might be welcomed by the employees. There could be aspects of your brand. Let's say your brand has a product that is part of your identity that has some governance issues or that has some ethical concerns. And your employees don't perceive that area of your company brand to be positive. Now, if you rebrand your company, leaving that relationship out, you might see a welcome change. Example, a particular group in a organized in a conglomerate group might have a, let's say, a casino brand linked to it. And employees might not see that as a positive association. And if your rebranding exercise decides to leave that business out and rebrand yourself, how would that be welcome or disruptive? At the same time, if your company has a brand that is extremely engaging with your employees, there's a history of many years, and if you try to rebrand that, how will that be looked by your employees? Is it going to be positive or disruptive? So you might have to now consider theory that talks about corporate brand drivers, like Kramer's theory, other brand identification theory by Davis, and then evaluate the degree of positive or negative response that you could expect in case you do any changes to your brand in a rebranding exercise. Now remember, these changes could be symbolic changes, communication changes, that means a message, content, or the tone could change. It could even be a behavioral change. Your company might want to get into certain activities that you never got into. Example, from the CSR you've done as part of your corporate behaviors, from supporting entrepreneurship, you might want to get to CSR, supporting the environment. And I'll tell you, millennials tend to associate environment related CSR activities to be far more involving, engaging, and even exciting, that they almost make those movements. So how would certain rebranding changes impact, be welcome by your employees, or be really disruptive? So after this critical evaluation, we need one or two findings about specific areas of the corporate identity rebranding options and the possible employee outlook to each one of those. So that basically should conclude your task 1.c.